Okay, so welcome to the review of the Fiido L3, this little mini fold-up bike. Okay, and so the question arises, why would you get this little bike? Because it's so small and everything. Well, of course, it's got a lot of utility. It can fold up here in the center, and the handlebars can drop down. You've probably seen the videos and that, how that's done. So you can pull out the battery, very big battery at the back, and it has huge range apparently. According to Citizen Cycle, it's something like 74 miles, and he's a fairly big guy. He's 6'1" or 2", and 5'10" on a good day. So needless to say, it's got a lot of potential. And this bike came for about €849, I think. That included delivery charges, so it wasn't too expensive at this day and age. So its appeal is twofold. Its usability, adaptability. You can fold it up, you can put it on a train and go to the other end of the country. Similarly, on a bus, go cross country, and when you arrive at a lonely bus station or whatever, and you still have 10 or 11 miles to go to your auntie's house, you're back in action, and this will bring you all the way. So it's really good from that point of view. The other point of view is range. If you can do realistically in the real world 60 or more miles, this opens a lot of possibilities, in fact. So recently I had an occasion to go to do an exam 25 miles from where I live, and I had the option to maybe bring the Fiido T1, which is a bigger bike, but I only had the range in the T1 round trip of say 50 miles only if I rode in Pass 1, which would have been a bit slow and different things, and I would have had problems trying to get a charge. Maybe it was touch and go, and I didn't know the town or anybody in the town locally, so I didn't really know how it was fixed. So in the end I took the bus instead, and when I arrived there I found in the town that in fact the exam was 2 miles outside the town. I had to organise local taxis and so forth, and in the end the thing cost me, the travel charges for the day cost me over €40 in fact. So it was kind of an expensive day. If I'd had this little bike, I would have been able to just jump on it and go. No walking for 1.5 miles to the bus station or anything like that. And you know, you would have got there maybe after an hour and a half or whatever each way, and it would have done the trick really nice actually. So that's the second part of the appeal for this bike, is the actual range. It opens up new possibilities. I'm thinking of a woman who I know lived in Spain, in the south of Spain, and she was about 23 or 4 miles inland from the coast. And anybody who knows Spain in the summertime knows about the heat there. And she had no car, so to get to the beach it was really hopeless for her, and she was living in a really hot hellhole of a place with no wind, a boring place, didn't even qualify as a village. If she had this bike, it would have transformed it completely for her. It would have transformed her life, because she could have loaded up, rode to the beach early in the morning, spent the entire day at the beach, brought a tent, hung a hammock, whatever she wanted, have lunch at a beach bar or whatever it was, and stay, and then come back in the evening time when it's getting cool at 6 or 7 in a summer's evening. It would have totally transformed her lifestyle, in fact. So that's the second aspect of the appeal. The point about it, it's the second point of appeal about this bike, the long range of the battery. Now, speaking of the battery, it looks just like the Fiido T1 battery, except it's approximately 1 inch higher, and it's a 23 amp hour battery, same kind of key mechanism, and you slide it out. You slide it out just like with the T1. The battery itself is about the same weight as a T1 battery, probably about 13.5 pounds. The whole bike is about 53 or 4 pounds, so with it, without the battery, it's approximately 40 pounds. And it can be grabbed here on this handle, and of course it can be folded up. I don't like to fold it too much because I'm mindful of wearing these catches here. I don't really need to be folding it all the time. It can be dragged indoors, of course. It can go upstairs, whatever you need, up an attic, in the office, bring it in, safety. Don't have to be locking it up all the time. So there's a lot of utility and a lot of appeal about this bike. So the question now is, how does it actually hold up in practice? That's the theory of it, and it's kind of a unique design. There are a few, let's say, knockoffs of this bike, imitations, rivals made by Engwe and different people. But the Fiido seem to have the weight and the big battery nailed, pretty much. So the question now is, how good is it actually in practice? So let's see that. Okay. So let's start from the front and work our way back. First of all, with these tyres in the front, these are the little brothers of the Fiido T1 tyres, made by CST. I found them on the T1 very good. Of course, they're far smaller, and the inflation is an important point. It's supposed to be, according to the tyre, between 36 and 46 psi, which is much higher than the fat tyres. Be careful about inflating any bike, but especially these small bikes where you can bring them indoors. If you inflate it close to the limit, say outdoors on a cold day, then when you bring it into a warm kitchen like here, the air will expand and the tyre can burst. That's a very, very common problem. So when you inflate it, when you bring it up, make sure you're inflated when you're indoors in a warm area, say, or else put it at a very low level, maybe half 46, 25 or something like that, if you're inflating it out in the yard on a cold day or something like that. Otherwise you have the risk of the tyre bursting. You've got these mag wheels, very nice. I love them on the T1, and these are the little brother, they're 7-blade mag wheels. Very well done. That's a good idea because you don't have to be worried about spokes or any of that stuff. Then we have the brakes. These brakes are 160mm discs, and they're very good, very commanding for this little wheel. These are 14-inch wheels. The actual brake calipers are cable pulled. They're the same brake calipers as was on the original T1, which was a 20-inch fat tyre bike. They're much more commanding here, much more productive as a brake because of the smaller diameters. So I find them very, very sharp, and they've been good. So on this little bike, I don't think you quite need hydraulic brakes. It would be nice to have them, but they're a bit of an overkill on this bike, I think. These brakes seem very, very good so far. One thing is that these bikes, I know from previous experience, can go out of tune a little bit, and it's very, very easy to rotate this disc here. You just need to keep your little Allen key with you. There's no suspension on this bike except the middle bar, this post here under the very nice saddle, and it really does work very, very well. If we get a shot of it here, I'm going to put my elbow weight on it. It goes actually up and down, and there is actually a shock absorber effect in here in the saddle bar, which I didn't think there would be. So it's very, very nice. It's very comfortable. And it needs to be, because it's a very, very small little bike. The sensation is very unusual when you ride it. The handlebars only go this high, so I like to have the saddle about 2 inches higher than what you see it now. That's for full leg extension. However, that makes it a bit uncomfortable because it means I'm leaning too far forward for the handlebars. So I took it down an inch or two, and it turns out I get away with it actually. I can put my foot about there, and it still works out okay. It's a bit of a compromise, but it's okay. Now, with regards to use of the pedals in this bike, you have here a very small cog, well, a bigger cog than I would like. It's at 16 tooth sprocket, I think, and that's it. There are no gears, and that means that you'll be out of pedal and spin out of pedal after about 8 miles per hour. So the only time you'll contribute on this bike with pedals realistically is to help it going up a very steep hill. So that's probably why this is suitable. If the bike had a bit more power, I would like to see a smaller size cog, maybe an 11 or something like that. But anyway, that's a different topic. Okay, so this bike really will only be used, you'll only use the pedals to go up a steep hill. After that you won't contribute. Therefore having full leg extension isn't really such a big issue as it normally would be on a bike. I'm a person who likes to have full leg extension. I'm 5'10", and I have the saddle, as I say, down an inch or two lower than I would like ideally, and it works out fine. If you're a very big tall person, you might have problems, I'm not sure, because the handlebars are not very impressionable when you use them. They look nice, they do function okay, but you have to get used to it. You find yourself leaning forward a lot, and when you jump down, as I do, on one foot at traffic lights, you don't have too much space in here. So you get used to it, but you have to be mindful of it. So the bike, for comfort's sake, it might be an inch or two longer than it is, but it's the way it is. It's a small, little, neat, compact bike. Okay, so now getting back to the front wheel there, we have really very nice mud guards, front and back, I have to say. They're well done, they're well covered. I wish the bigger Fiido bikes and the other fat tire bikes had them. They're very, very, very nice mud guard, yeah. So we have a front light, and it's not stellar, but let me turn it on here. You turn it on by this display. I'll get to the display a bit later. But there it is. Very dim display, really, not really bright enough. As soon as you turn it on, the backlight always comes on. There it is, and it's really, I hope the camera captures that. It's incredibly bright. That will be award winning in terms of how bright it is. So anyway, that's on whether you like it or not. The front light, to put it on, you have a button here, turn it on, and there it is. Not stellar, it won't win any awards, but it's okay, it's good to have. It's built in, it's another item you don't have to buy, obviously. Okay, so that's it, the brakes. What else? So, the handlebars are height adjustable through this, but right now they're at the maximum height, and I could really do with them being a little bit higher, to be honest. I would like to maybe have a different handlebar here that goes up an inch or two and lets me sit back a bit more. But anyway, it is what it is. Now let's look at this display. So this is one area where Fiido have really messed up yet again. So they seem to have a habit of varying the equipment, displays in particular, and it was the same story in the T1. Previously, they had a nice blue bright display, very bright, and it had more features on this than this display. This is not bright enough. Today is a very dull day. I had it out earlier on. It's not actually bright enough to see outside, in fact. Not that there's that much to see on the display. I was able to go through the standard procedure of keeping the fingers on the two buttons and disable the speed limit, but it didn't actually make any difference. This is speed limited to 25 kilometers per hour, and in practice about 23 kilometers per hour is what you'll actually get on the flat. It's almost fast enough. It's about 15 miles per hour, give or take. It's almost fast enough. It's not, you wouldn't really want that much more speed. On this small little bike you really feel the speed. But anyway, there's a cruise control also that I enabled. I'm not sure if that's going to be very useful. I normally don't use cruise control, but if you're in a longer distance, maybe it can be useful. This particular display, in addition to not being very good or bright, it has no USB port to charge things, and that has proven to be a very useful item in the past when you suddenly run out of charge for your camera or your phone or whatever else. So no, they've downgraded it here. Previous displays like the bright blue one was quite nice. It had everything. Now also, this is in kilometers. I don't know if you can change it to miles. I haven't been able to. But also you don't have an odometer or a mileometer. There's no historic recording of miles, so you don't know what miles the bike has done. And that's really useless, you know. So Fiido, this is the third different type of display. They seem to have gone worse now. They've gone back to this very dim display and an inadequate display with not enough information on it, and it's no good really. You can't read it out when you're out in the daytime. And other than turning on and off the bike, actually, this display doesn't really do anything, because the differences between PAS 1 and PAS 2 and PAS 3 are nothing. There's no detectable difference from what I've seen. They have the same power levels, they do the same top speed, that's it. By the way, I tried it out on quite a steep hill or two earlier, and it's quite good, it's quite gutsy, it'll bring you up the hills. You most definitely need to pedal because you'll be going very slow. Once you go past 8 miles per hour, you won't be using the pedals in this bike. But it's okay, you get up most hills. There's one or two very steep hills in my area. I didn't attempt to go up them. I kind of know it wouldn't go up. Maybe it would, with a push or a shove myself if I had the saddle in a high position or whatever else. But I'd be inclined to avoid them. So that brings me to the whole issue of controllers. The controller is kept down here. I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment, what the box is housed in. But the controller is, I noticed it's a 20 amp controller officially. It looks just like the T1 controller, the little aluminium sealed box inside this box here. And I suspect that they have it limited to, I'm not sure, I was probably using between 14 and 16 amps, probably, the full power. And you have that on the display, the combination of the display and the speed limits that are set in, built into it. And it's been a bit of the lottery buying Fiido bikes, because they seem to vary the display and vary the controllers. And we have the thing on the T1 where the new T1 bikes have a limited controller, and you have to change out to put in the old controller if you want a bit of speed, right, out of it. So I think you have the same kind of thing happening here, with maybe less consequence, because you don't need to be going much more than 15 miles per hour on this bike. 50 miles per hour is fairly fast on this bike. The maximum I would like is 18, if I'm honest. The point is though, it would be nice to get a bit more power to go up hills. Now, to go up very steep hills. Now this motor is rated at, I think, 350 watts. And normally a motor like that will pull in a bit of, maybe twice the power or more of its rating for short periods when you want to go up a hill, for example. But I'm not so sure it's getting it with this particular controller combination. So ultimately, you can actually buy from Grinnell Electronics in Canada a different controller, a small one, size of a Mars bar, that will fit in here. It's very, very powerful, and a different display, a small little display as well. We'll turn that off. And with those powerful controllers, some of them are at 90 watts, 90 amps, which is ridiculous. And the typical power for a controller is 40 watts, 30 watts, 45 watts, etc. Made by Grinnell in Canada, Grinnell Electronics. And with them, when you fit them into this and you replace this controller here, they automatically spin up the wheel, and they set the wheel in a minute or two. They recognize the magnets in the wheel and so on, and that's it. It's set and configured. So you can then, with the display that comes with it, a little display like this, you can go down to the menu and configure what you want. And I would suggest fitting one of those controllers in the future. I'll probably do it myself here. And to configure those controllers, I would suggest that maximum speed of, say, 18 miles per hour or 19 is plenty on this little bike, and maximum current of maybe 20 or 21 amps. That way, when you need power to go up a steep hill, you have it, but when you're on the flat, you won't be going past 18 miles per hour, so you typically won't be burning so much current, and you'll have lots of life in the battery and all of that. So I think that would be a sensible thing. Incidentally, Fiido could, if they wanted to, set these settings that I'm recommending, and to me they're sensible. but they've chosen not to do it. I partly understand it because of EU regulations and all that other nonsense. But that is the kind of natural workaround, and it's the thing that leaves this bike a little bit lacking. Just a little bit in the power level, and the display in general is not so useful. Okay, so then you have the build quality overall. It seems to be pretty well done. It's pretty well thought out, but there's a couple of shortcomings. One of them is what Fiido have been guilty of before. Here in this controller box, there is at the back of it two very big, at the tip of my fingers right there, very big gaping holes where the cables enter into it. And the same on the other side of that box. So they should really seal up this. I recommend that people do that. Get a hot glue gun. I did it in the Fiido T1, and seal up those big ports, because this is Ireland here. It's raining lots. It's raining as I speak, and it rains nearly every day, and you're going to get lots of water in there. Surprisingly, there are no drain holes here at all that I can see as yet. I'm going to have to open up this box and have a better look. But I can see no drain holes here at all in this box. So this is going to fill up with water. And of course, it's got a controller inside. So that's bad design, again. So they should really think a bit more about that, because that's an accident and a problem waiting to happen, in my view. So I'll be addressing that. I may have to drill a little hole. In the Fiido T1 there were 6 draining holes at the bottom. Too many. I filled them all up except one, but still, you do need one draining hole, I think. That aside, I don't really see too many shortcomings in the way it's built and made, so far anyway. It seems to be a bit of a fun bike, and we'll check out the battery and the mileage. The battery is supposed to last for 5 years, or 800 chargers, or whatever it is. It's a very big battery, so you won't typically deep cycle it unless you're doing a lot of miles every day. So it'd be interesting to see how this little bike clocks up the miles and handles the miles and so on. I think it might be good. It's got a very light sensation. I love the stand, the kickstand, very neat, very cute, and it works very, very well. Yeah. So it's an appetizing little bike, very different sensation when you're on it. The saddle is entirely comfortable, very much so. But the steering or the handlebars feels like an instant bike you unfold, kind of an afterthought really. It's more like a scooter with a very comfortable seat. It feels a little bit like that. Nonetheless, it seems to be fairly capable. I'll be taking it out and I'll be putting it through the paces and going some longer distances and so on. Okay, so we'll leave it at that for now. So here's a trick that has worked out really well with this little Fiido bike. This is a rucksack, not a very typical rucksack. It's made by, who is it, Carrymore, yeah. And I guess if you look them up on the internet, I came across one of these locally in a bag shop, and it fits really perfectly on the back of the Fiido. So it's actually an unusual bag because it's a rucksack, but it's got a trolley mechanism and it's got little wheels at the bottom to drag it around after you. So this is great for carrying this big battery here. If I want to go shopping, I can pop the battery inside here, because the battery is a lot of the cost of this bike. And by the way, the battery, this bike was €849. Most of that cost of this bike is battery. You would never get a replacement battery for this. You'd simply order a complete bike. So the bike is more or less thrown in with the battery. So this case, it's got as well as being a trolley rucksack, it's got these magic detachable straps at the bottom, and that's proven really useful in the past. It means that I can put it automatically onto lots of different fat bikes, and you instantly get a side carrier bag. It's very big, it's very large, but on this Fiido it works really well, because I can put it up here to bring down the handle, and strap it in. The straps go around the saddle bar like so, both of them. But also that bungee cord here, this yellow one on the floor, I shortened it so it connects to here, goes under, right under here, and up the other side onto here. So the whole thing gets sprung up like this towards the end of the back of the saddle, and it's really perfect. Not only that, if we look on the underside of it, these plastic lugs here over the wheels for stands, they're natural stands, they fit perfectly either side of this carrier. So you really would think it was actually made for it. So it's very, very stable. And it's quite a large bag really. You can unzip it and put shopping, groceries, helmets, battery you want to carry around town with you, anything you want after you lock it up, locks and so on and so on. So it's a very, very useful bag, and it makes great use of the carrier. So look out for a rucksack like that, and you can plonk it directly onto the carrier like so, and it's great. The only thing about that is, I guess, it might not be so good for wind cheating. It's quite wide, as you can see on the bike, but anyway, you may find smaller rucksacks like that that will fit on nicely. But this one in particular is very good because, as I say, it's a rucksack come trolley bag, and it's got stiff plastic vertebrae at the back of it to keep it all upright. So it's really well suited, and it's worked out perfect for this particular bike. So it's good. It gives it great utility. Yeah.